Station Meridian was always busy. Ships came and went every hour, carrying cargo and passengers across the galaxy. The main docking bays buzzed with life. Crews shouted to each other. Engines roared. Metal clanged against metal. But down in Bay 47, tucked away in the forgotten corner of the station, there was only silence. Inside that dark hangar, something massive lay completely still. At first glance, you might think it was just another damaged ship waiting for repairs. But if you looked closer, you'd see it was alive. It was a dragon. A real, spacefaring dragon named Seraphix. She used to be beautiful. Her scales were pure white, almost translucent, like polished pearls or moonlight frozen in time. When she flew through space, starlight would bounce off her body and create patterns that made other creatures stop and stare in wonder. But those days were long gone now. Her entire body was covered in something horrible. Millions upon millions of void barnacles clung to her scales. These weren't normal parasites. They were space creatures that fed on cosmic radiation, and they'd latched onto her so deeply that they'd become part of her. Each barnacle was small, about the size of a human thumb, but there were so many of them that you couldn't see her original scales anymore. They pulsed with a sickly blue light as they slowly drained her life force. The weight of them pressed down on her constantly. Every movement brought fresh waves of pain. Seraphix remembered exactly when it happened. It was 3 years ago, almost to the day. She'd been flying a routine patrol near the station when her sensors picked up something terrible. A colony transport ship, carrying 12,000 people to a new world, had gotten caught in the path of a massive solar flare. The ship's shields couldn't handle that much radiation. Everyone on board would have died within minutes. Seraphix didn't think. She just acted. She pushed her engines to maximum and threw herself between the transport and the flare. She spread her massive wings wide, using her own body as a shield. The radiation hit her like a wall of fire. It burned through her natural defenses and soaked into her scales. The pain was unimaginable. But she held her position until the transport could escape to safety. The people on that ship lived. All 12,000 of them made it home to their families. But Seraphix paid the price. The radiation didn't kill her, but it changed her. Within days, the first barnacles appeared. Within weeks, hundreds covered her body. Within months, there were millions. They were attracted to the cosmic radiation still trapped in her scales, feeding on it, multiplying endlessly. The sound of the hangar door opening broke through her thoughts. Seraphix didn't bother moving. These days, the only visitors were maintenance workers who'd taken a wrong turn or station officials checking to make sure she hadn't died yet. Nobody came to actually see her anymore. "Holy hell," someone said. The voice was female and it carried shock. "You're still alive." Seraphix cracked open one crystalline eye. The voice belonged to another dragon. Ruby-red scales gleamed in the dim hangar lights. Perfect scales without a single barnacle or scar. It was her sister Victoria. "I'm busy," Seraphix said, her voice rough from disuse. She closed her eye again. Victoria's claws clicked against the metal floor as she walked closer. Every step was graceful and precise. She moved like a dancer, like someone who'd never known pain or weakness. Once upon a time, Seraphix had moved like that too. Now she could barely lift her head without agony shooting through her body. "The clan gathering is in 2 cycles, Victoria said, her tone businesslike. "Father expects both of us to attend. He says the family needs to show unity during the trade negotiations with." "Tell Father I'm dead," Seraphix interrupted. "It'll be true soon enough anyway." "Don't be so dramatic," Victoria snapped, but there was something uncomfortable in her voice. "The healer said you're stable. You could live for years like this." Seraphix let out a bitter laugh that turned into a cough. A cluster of barnacles near her throat pulsed, making it hard to breathe for a moment. "The healers gave up 8 months ago. Did you know that? They stopped coming. Stopped trying. They said there was nothing more they could do." Victoria was quiet. The silence stretched between them like a physical thing. When she finally spoke again, her voice had changed. It was softer now, almost guilty. "I have to go. The supply run to the outer colonies can't wait. But I promise I'll try to visit more often. Maybe next week or—" "Sure you will," Seraphix said flatly. She heard Victoria hesitate, heard her sister's claws shift against the floor. For a moment, Seraphix thought Victoria might actually stay. Might actually sit with her like they used to when they were young before everything went wrong. But then the footsteps moved toward the door. "Take care of yourself," Victoria said quietly. The hangar door hissed shut and Seraphix was alone again. She'd stopped counting how long it had been since someone visited without having an excuse already prepared. Victoria always had somewhere else to be. Father was too busy with clan politics. The other dragons whispered about her in their meetings and their fancy gatherings. They called her foolish. Said she'd been stupid to risk herself for a bunch of humans and aliens she didn't even know. Said this was what happened when you broke tradition and acted on emotion instead of logic. The dragon clans valued strength and perfection. Seraphix was neither of those things anymore. She was an embarrassment. A reminder that even the mighty could fall. Through the viewport in her hangar, Seraphix watched her sister transform into her flight form and launch into space. Victoria's ruby scales caught the light from distant stars as she accelerated away from the station. She moved with effortless grace, her wings cutting through the void like she was born to it. Because she was. They both were. Seraphix closed her eyes and tried to remember what that felt like. The freedom of flight. The rush of moving between worlds. The joy of feeling starlight on her scales. But the memories were fading, becoming harder to hold onto. These days, all she knew was the cold metal floor beneath her, the constant weight of the barnacles, and the slow, creeping certainty that this was how she would die. Alone, forgotten, in a dark hangar where nobody wanted to look at her. She curled tighter into herself and wished for the silence to swallow her completely. Part 2, an unlikely partnership. 3 days passed in Bay 47 without a single visitor. Seraphix had grown used to the emptiness. The silence was almost comfortable now, like an old blanket that smelled bad but kept you warm anyway. At least when she was alone, she didn't have to see the pity or disgust in anyone's eyes. The hangar door suddenly hissed open again. Seraphix kept her eyes firmly shut. Maybe if she pretended to be asleep, whoever it was would just leave her alone. Jesus Christ, a voice said. Mel. Human, judging by the accent. What the hell happened to you? Great. Another gawker. Seraphix had dealt with plenty of those over the years. People who'd heard rumors about the afflicted dragon and wanted to see the freak show for themselves. Go away, she growled, putting as much venom into her voice as she could manage. But the footsteps didn't retreat. Instead they came closer. Seraphix cracked one eye open, ready to scare this idiot off with a proper roar if she had to. A human man stood about 10 feet away from her head, staring up at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. He looked maybe 40 years old, with sandy brown hair starting to gray at the temples. His flight suit was covered in oil stains and burn marks. The name patch on his chest read Tyler Reed Salvage Operations. His hands were rough and scarred, the hands of someone who worked with machinery for a living. Those are void barnacles, Tyler said, walking slowly around her body. His boots echoed on the metal floor. I've seen maybe a dozen cases in my 20 years working stations. But never anything like this. How many are there? Millions, Seraphix said bitterly. Now are you satisfied? Go tell your friends you saw the monster. I'm sure it'll make a great story. Tyler didn't leave. He kept circling her, examining the barnacles with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. His face didn't show disgust or pity. It showed something else. Curiosity maybe. Or concentration. How long have you had them? He asked. 3 years. The healers tried everything. Magic, technology, combination treatments. Nothing worked. The barnacles are bonded to my scales at the molecular level. Removing them would mean removing my scales too, and that would kill me faster than the parasites will. Seraphix had given this explanation so many times it came out automatically now, like a recording. Tyler stopped in front of her and pulled out a small handheld scanner from his belt. Did anyone try manual removal? Seraphix actually laughed at that. It was a harsh, broken sound. You're joking, right? There are millions of them. It would take forever. Years, maybe decades. Nobody has that kind of time to waste on a lost cause. Maybe, Tyler said. He knelt down beside her front leg, holding up the scanner. Mind if I take some readings? I want to see the composition of these things. Why? Seraphix asked suspiciously. Tyler looked up at her, and his eyes were serious. Because I'm curious, and because giving up on hard problems isn't really in my nature. He paused, then added quietly, My kid Lily, she's got this condition. Doctors back on Earth said there's no cure, just treatments to slow it down. But I keep researching anyway. Keep looking for answers. Can't help myself. It's just how I'm built, I guess. Something in his tone made Seraphix hold still. There was pain there, carefully hidden but real. This man understood what it meant to watch someone suffer and feel helpless. Tyler ran his scanner over a cluster of barnacles on her foreleg. The device beeped and chirped, displaying data that meant nothing to Seraphix but seemed to fascinate Tyler. He muttered to himself as he worked, occasionally tapping commands into the scanner. After about 10 minutes he stood up and brushed the dust off his knees. Okay. So these things have a calcium silicate shell structure with some organic compounds mixed in. I've worked with similar materials doing ship repairs. The bond is strong, but it's not unbreakable. What are you saying? Seraphix asked carefully. Tyler met her gaze directly. I'm saying I think I can remove them. Won't be fast. Won't be easy. Probably hurt like hell. But I've got the tools, I've got the time, and I've got the stubbornness to see it through. Seraphix stared at him. This human was insane. He had to be. You can't be serious. Even if you could remove 100 a day, it would take decades to get them all. So I'll start with 1,000 a day, Tyler said with a shrug. Work up from there. Look, I know it sounds crazy. But you know what's crazier? Giving up when there's still a chance. He crossed his arms. I've got a salvage contract with the station that gives me pretty flexible hours. I need somewhere to work anyway, and this hangar is mostly empty. Let me try. If it doesn't work after a few weeks, I'll stop. But at least we'll know we tried. Why would you do this? Seraphix whispered. You don't even know me. I'm not your responsibility. Tyler was quiet for a moment, looking at the barnacles covering her body. When he spoke, his voice was soft but firm. Back on Earth, there's this old saying. Be the person you needed when you were younger. When my daughter got diagnosed, I felt so damn helpless. Everyone kept telling me to accept reality, to stop hoping for miracles. But you know what? Someone did help us. A researcher who could have spent her time on easier cases decided my kid was worth the effort. Changed our lives. He looked back at Seraphix's face. You saved 12,000 people 3 years ago. I looked up the incident reports before I came down here. You nearly died protecting strangers. That kind of person deserves someone willing to fight for them too. So yeah, I'm serious. Let me try. Seraphix felt something she hadn't felt in months. It wasn't quite hope, not yet. But it was close. A tiny spark of possibility in the darkness. This human was either the biggest fool in the galaxy or the first person in 3 years who actually saw her as someone worth saving. You'll get tired of it, Seraphix said, but her voice lacked conviction. After a few days, you'll realize how pointless it is. Tyler grinned. It was a crooked smile that made him look younger. Lady, I once spent 6 months rebuilding a freighter engine using parts from 14 different ship models. My ex-wife used to say I was too stubborn to quit even when common sense was beating me over the head. If there's one thing humans are good at, it's being too dumb to know when something's impossible. Despite everything, despite the pain and the loneliness and the years of disappointment, Seraphix felt her mouth twitch into something almost like a smile. Okay, she said quietly. Okay. You can try. Tyler nodded and immediately started pulling equipment from his tool belt, already planning his approach. We'll start with the clusters on your legs. Lower pain concentration there, and I can stand comfortably while working. I'll rig up some proper lighting tomorrow, get my heavy tools from the ship. He was already talking like this was a done deal, like there was no question he'd see it through. Seraphix watched him work, this small human barely bigger than one of her claws, preparing to take on an impossible task. For the first time in 3 years, Bay 47 didn't feel quite so much like a tomb. Week 7. Tyler sat on a modified maintenance platform he'd built himself, positioned at the perfect height to work on Seraphix's left foreleg. Bright work lights illuminated the section he was focused on, casting harsh shadows across the clusters of void barnacles. In his hands he held a tool he'd custom-made from salvaged equipment. It looked like a cross between a dental pick and a thermal cutter. The work was slow and meticulous. Each barnacle had to be loosened from its root connection to her scales before being removed. If he went too fast or used too much force, he damaged the scale underneath. Tyler had learned that lesson the hard way during week 2, when he'd accidentally cracked one of her scales and Seraphix had let out a sound of pain that still haunted his dreams. So anyway, Tyler continued talking as he worked, his voice steady and conversational. My buddy Rick says to me, Tyler, you can't fix a plasma conduit with spare parts from a food processor. And I told him, watch me. Seraphix had learned that Tyler never stopped talking while he worked. At first it had annoyed her. But now, 7 weeks in, she found herself actually looking forward to his stories. They made the hours pass faster and gave her something to focus on besides the constant stinging pain. Did it work? She asked, already knowing the answer would be entertaining. Hell no, Tyler laughed, carefully prying another barnacle loose. It came free with a wet popping sound and a small hiss of toxic gas. Tyler's respirator filtered it out automatically. Blew out half the ship's electrical system. We were dead in space for 3 days before a rescue tug found us. But hey, we didn't die, and I learned what not to do next time. He tossed the removed barnacle into a containment bucket. It joined thousands of others. Tyler had been keeping count. Today's total was already at 412. Yesterday he'd managed 506. He was getting faster, more efficient. But even at this rate, the math was daunting. Rick told me that day that humans don't know when to quit, Tyler said, selecting a different tool for a particularly stubborn cluster. Meant it as an insult. I took it as a compliment. The hangar door suddenly opened with its familiar hiss. Tyler didn't look up from his work, but Seraphix recognized the sound of claws clicking on metal. Victoria had come back. Her sister stood in the doorway staring at them. The last time Victoria had visited was 3 weeks ago. She'd stayed for maybe 5 minutes before making excuses about her schedule. Now she looked at the patches of clean opalescent scales that were starting to show on Seraphix's leg. Maybe 10% of the foreleg was clear now. It wasn't much, but it was visible progress. "You're still doing this?" Victoria said. It wasn't quite a question. "Every single day," Tyler replied, still focused on his work. His hands never stopped moving. "Weekends too." Victoria walked closer, her movements careful, almost hesitant. "But there are millions more. This is going to take years." Tyler finally looked up at her. His face was tired but determined. Sweat beaded on his forehead from working under the hot lights. "Then it takes years. I've got nowhere else I need to be." "That's insane," Victoria said, but her voice had lost its sharp edge. She sounded almost confused. "You're a salvage worker. You could be making money on actual jobs. Why waste your time on something that might not even work?" Tyler set down his tools and stood up, stretching his back. He'd been working for 6 hours straight today. "You want to know why? Because your sister right here risked everything to save people she didn't know. And when she needed help, everyone walked away. Everyone except me, apparently." He picked his tools back up and returned to work. "You said you have responsibilities. Trade routes, deals, whatever. That's fine. But don't act like I'm the crazy one for choosing to help family when they need it." "She's not your family," Victoria said quietly. "Maybe not by blood," Tyler admitted. "But family isn't just about who you're related to. It's about who you show up for when things get hard." He successfully removed another barnacle and added it to the bucket. "You're her actual sister, and I haven't seen you lift a claw to help. So yeah, maybe I am crazy. But at least I'm here." Victoria stood there in silence for a long moment. Seraphix could see something working behind her sister's eyes, emotions she couldn't quite name. Shame maybe. Or guilt. Finally, without another word, Victoria turned and left. The hangar door sealed behind her. "Sorry," Seraphix said quietly after her sister was gone. "You didn't have to say all that." "Yes, I did," Tyler replied firmly. "Someone needed to." He glanced up at her. "Does it bother you? That I called her out like that?" Seraphix thought about it. A month ago she would have defended Victoria automatically. Made excuses for her. But now, after 7 weeks of watching this human show up every single day without fail, working himself to exhaustion with no promise of success or reward, she saw things differently. "No," she said honestly. "It doesn't bother me." Tyler nodded and went back to work. After a few minutes of silence, he started another story. "So my daughter Lily, she's 9 years old now. Smart as a whip. Last time I talked to her, she told me she wants to be a xenobiologist when she grows up. Study alien life forms across the galaxy." "That's ambitious," Seraphix said, genuinely interested. Tyler didn't talk about his daughter often, but when he did, his whole voice changed. It got softer, warmer. "Yeah. The thing is, with her condition, doctors said she might not live past 20. But you know what Lily told them?" She said, "Then I better get started now." Tyler's hands paused for just a second before resuming their work. "Kids got more courage than most adults I know. She doesn't let the bad days stop her from planning for good ones." Seraphix understood what he was really saying. That hope wasn't about ignoring reality. It was about refusing to let reality have the final word. Lily kept planning her future despite the odds. Tyler kept working despite the impossible task ahead. And slowly, barnacle by barnacle, Seraphix was beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. "How much did you get today?" she asked. Tyler checked his counter. 463 so far. "I'm aiming for 500 before I call it a night." He grinned up at her. "Trying to beat yesterday's record." "You're insane," Seraphix said, but there was affection in her voice now. "Yeah, probably," Tyler agreed cheerfully. "But I'm your kind of insane, right?" Despite the pain, despite the exhaustion, despite everything, Seraphix found herself smiling. "Yeah, you are." Tyler worked for another 2 hours that night, pushing himself past his target. When he finally climbed down from his platform, his hands were shaking from fatigue. But he'd removed 547 barnacles. A new personal record. Before he left, he patted Seraphix's leg gently, right on one of the clear patches of scales. "See you tomorrow. We're making progress." After he was gone, Seraphix looked at her foreleg in the dim light. The patches of clean scales gleamed softly. They were small victories. Tiny compared to the vast expanse of barnacles still covering her body. But they were real. For the first time in 3 years, Seraphix let herself believe that maybe she could fly again someday. And it was all because of one stubborn human who refused to give up. Part 4, The Crisis Point. Month 4, Day 17. Seraphix woke up to pain unlike anything she'd ever experienced. It felt like her entire body was being ripped apart from the inside. The barnacles near her primary heart, the massive organ that pumped life through her dragon body, were dying. Not just a few. Hundreds of thousands of them all at once. When barnacles died, they released toxins. It was their final act of destruction, poisoning whatever host they'd been feeding on. Usually, a few dying barnacles weren't a problem. A dragon's body could handle small amounts of poison. But this wasn't small. This was a flood of neurotoxins pouring directly into her bloodstream, heading straight for her brain and vital organs. "Tyler." Seraphix gasped, her vision already starting to blur. "Something's wrong." He was there within seconds, scanner in hand. Tyler had started sleeping in the hangar 3 weeks ago, claiming his quarters were too far away and he was wasting time commuting. Really, Seraphix knew he was worried about leaving her alone for too long. Now she understood why. His face went white as he read the scanner data. No. Not now. We're so close." Seraphix's legs buckled. Her massive body hit the floor with a crash that shook the entire hangar. She could feel her heart struggling, beating irregularly as the poison spread through her system. Her breathing came in short, painful gasps. The hangar door burst open. Station medical personnel rushed in, their own scanners beeping frantically. A Thraxian doctor, his 4 eyes wide with alarm, checked her vitals and shook his head. "Toxin levels are off the charts. She's going into cascade failure. There's nothing we can do. She has maybe 6 hours, 8 at most. We should make her comfortable." "Get out," Tyler said. His voice was low and dangerous. The doctor blinked all 4 eyes. "Excuse me? I said get out." Tyler roared, turning on them with such fury that the medical team actually took a step back. "You gave up on her months ago. You don't get to come in here now and tell me to let her die. Get out of my hangar." The medical team exchanged glances and quietly left. They'd done their duty. The dragon was terminal. Nothing more they could do. But Tyler wasn't done. Not even close. The moment they were gone, he was running toward his ship, which sat in the corner of the hangar. Seraphix watched through hazy vision as he started tearing equipment out of his vessel's guts. The environmental system. The air filtration units. The water purification processors. He was gutting his own ship. "Tyler," Seraphix whispered, each word an effort. "It's okay. You did everything you could. More than anyone else. I'm grateful. I'm so grateful. But you need to let go now." "No." He was dragging equipment across the floor, cables trailing behind him like mechanical snakes. Sweat poured down his face. "Absolutely not. Not like this. Not after how far we've come. Please," Seraphix begged. She could feel herself fading, darkness creeping in at the edges of her mind. "Don't waste any more time on me. Go back to Earth. See your daughter. Tell Lily I said she should keep planning that future." Tyler stopped for just a moment and looked at her. His eyes were red, wild, but absolutely determined. "You know what Lily would say if I quit now? She'd say I was a coward. That I didn't fight hard enough." He went back to his work, hands moving with desperate speed. "I'm not quitting. I can filter your blood. Pull the toxins out before they kill you. I just need time." For the next 72 hours, Tyler didn't sleep. Not once. He'd rigged his ship's entire environmental system into a makeshift dialysis machine, running tubes directly into Seraphix's bloodstream. The system pulled her blood out, filtered it through his ship's processors and pumped it back in. It was crude, dangerous, and absolutely insane. But it was working. Slowly, painfully, it was working. Tyler monitored 6 different readouts simultaneously, adjusting flow rates and filtration settings every few minutes. His hands, already scarred from weeks of barnacle removal, started bleeding from handling the hot equipment. He didn't seem to notice or care. His eyes were bloodshot from exhaustion, but they never left the monitors. The dying barnacles still had to be removed. Each one was a tiny bomb of poison. So between monitoring the filtration system, Tyler worked on cutting them away from her chest. The area near her heart was the most dangerous, the most painful. Each barnacle he removed released more toxins. But leaving them would be worse. On the second day, Tyler started talking to himself. Or maybe he was talking to Seraphix, who was drifting in and out of consciousness. Come on, just a little longer. You saved 12,000 people. You don't get to die in some forgotten hangar. That's not how your story ends. His voice was hoarse from dehydration. When had he last drunk water? Seraphix couldn't remember. Couldn't think straight. Everything was pain and darkness and the sound of machines working overtime. On the third day, the hangar door opened again. Victoria stood there, frozen in shock at the scene before her. Her sister was sprawled on the floor, tubes running in and out of her body. Tyler was up on a ladder, working on the cluster of dying barnacles near Seraphix's heart. His flight suit was soaked with sweat and blood. His hands shook with exhaustion as he worked. "Human," Victoria said softly, stepping closer. "How long have you been doing this?" 68 hours, Tyler mumbled, not looking away from his work. His words were slurred with fatigue. "Maybe 70. Lost count. You need to rest. You're going to collapse." "Can't. She needs me." Tyler successfully removed another barnacle, dropping it into the containment bucket. His hands were definitely shaking now. Just a few more hours. Then the toxin levels should drop enough for her body to handle the rest. Victoria watched him work for a long moment. This tiny human, barely the size of her smallest claw, fighting with every ounce of strength he had. He'd gutted his own ship to save her sister. He'd worked himself to the point of collapse. He hadn't eaten or slept in 3 days. And he still wouldn't stop. Shame hit Victoria like a physical blow. Where had she been these past 4 months? Off flying trade routes. Making deals. Building her reputation. While her sister suffered, while this stranger fought for her life, Victoria had been worried about her career. "Tell me what to do," Victoria said. Tyler actually looked down at her then, surprise breaking through his exhaustion. "What?" "Tell me what to do," Victoria repeated, her voice stronger now. "I should have been here from the start. I wasn't. But I'm here now. Let me help." Tyler stared at her for another second, then nodded. "See that monitor? The blue one? If the number drops below 40, you need to adjust the valve on the filtration unit. Turn it clockwise, small movements. Can you do that?" "Yes." Victoria positioned herself by the monitor, her eyes locked on the numbers. "And that red container? When it fills up, swap it with one of the empties. Careful though, it's toxic waste." "Understood." They worked together through that third night. Victoria following Tyler's instructions precisely, learning on the fly. She watched this human push himself far beyond what should have been possible. His dedication, his refusal to quit, was like nothing she'd ever seen. This was what family looked like. This was what loyalty meant. As dawn broke on the 4th day, something changed. The monitors showed Seraphix's vitals stabilizing. The toxin levels were dropping. Her breathing became more regular. The crisis was passing. Tyler climbed down from his ladder and immediately collapsed. His legs just gave out. Victoria caught him gently in her claws before he hit the ground. He was unconscious before she even laid him down. She looked at her sister, still unconscious but alive, then at the human sleeping in her claws. This stranger had saved Seraphix. Had fought for her when everyone else, including her own family, had walked away. "Thank you," Victoria whispered, tears streaming down her scaled face. "Thank you for showing me what I should have been all along." Month 9. The last barnacle fell away with a soft metallic clink as it hit the containment bucket. Tyler set down his tools and just stared for a moment, hardly believing it was real. After 9 months of work, every single day without exception, it was finally done. Seraphix lay before him, completely revealed for the first time in over 3 years. Her albino scales gleamed like polished marble under the hangar lights. The opalescent surface caught and refracted light in ways that made her look almost ethereal, like she was carved from moonlight itself. But Tyler could see the problem immediately. Her muscles had wasted away during the years of immobility. Her once powerful legs trembled when she tried to stand. Her wings, which should have been strong enough to propel her massive body through space, hung limply at her sides. "Don't even think about trying to fly yet," Tyler said, walking around to face her. "You're in no condition. We need to build your strength back up first." "I know," Seraphix admitted, frustration clear in her voice. "I can barely stand for more than a few minutes. Flying is impossible right now." Tyler pulled out a datapad covered in notes and diagrams. Been working on this for the past month. Physical therapy program. Borrowed some techniques from human athletic training, adapted them for dragon physiology. Victoria helped me work out the math for your body mass and bone density. Victoria had indeed helped. After the crisis 3 months ago, she'd barely left the hangar. She'd put her trade routes on hold, delegated her responsibilities, and dedicated herself to helping her sister recover. The guilt of her earlier abandonment drove her, but now it had become something more. She genuinely wanted to be here. Wanted to help. Let's start simple, Tyler said, consulting his notes. Try extending your left wing. Just halfway. Hold it for a count of 10. The rehabilitation was brutal. Every movement hurt. Muscles that hadn't been used properly in years screamed in protest. Seraphix wanted to quit a dozen times that first day alone. But Tyler's voice kept her going. Come on, 5 more seconds. You've got this. We didn't come this far to stop now. I can't, Seraphix gasped, her wings shaking with effort. Yes, you can. I've seen you handle poison that should have killed you in minutes. You survived 3 years of hell that would have broken anyone else. A few wing exercises are nothing compared to that. Victoria joined in the encouragement. Remember when we were young? You used to practice your flying forms for hours. You were always the determined one, the one who never gave up. That dragon is still in there. Day by day, week by week, Seraphix grew stronger. Tyler designed increasingly complex exercises. Wing extensions became wing flaps. Standing became walking. Walking became running. The hangar bay, once a tomb, had transformed into a training ground. Tyler pushed her hard but never beyond what she could handle. He'd studied her recovery carefully, tracking every measurement, adjusting the program based on her progress. When she succeeded at something, he celebrated like it was the greatest achievement in the galaxy. When she struggled, he was there with encouragement and modifications to make it easier. 6 weeks into the rehabilitation program, Tyler made an announcement. I think you're ready. Tomorrow we're going to try a flight. Seraphix felt her heart race. Fear and excitement mixed together in equal measure. Are you sure? What if I can't do it? What if I've forgotten how? Then you'll remember, Tyler said simply. Dragons don't forget how to fly. It's in your DNA, literally coded into every cell of your body. Your wings know what to do. You just need to trust them. That night, Seraphix couldn't sleep. She kept imagining herself launching into space, feeling the stars rush past her scales, experiencing that incredible freedom she'd missed for so long. But she also imagined failure. Imagined her weak muscles giving out mid-flight, sending her tumbling through the void. The next morning, Station Meridian was buzzing with activity. Word had spread about the dragon's recovery and her planned first flight. The observation decks were packed with spectators. Some came out of genuine interest and support. Others came expecting to see her fail, to confirm their belief that she'd never truly recover. Tyler stood beside Victoria on the hangar deck, both of them watching as Seraphix positioned herself at the launch doors. The massive bay doors were already open, revealing the star-filled void beyond. She's going to be okay, right? Tyler asked quietly. For all his confidence, he was terrified. I don't know, Victoria admitted. But we've given her the best chance possible. The rest is up to her. Seraphix took a deep breath, feeling the recycled station air fill her lungs. This was it. Everything they'd worked for came down to this moment. She thought about Tyler, who'd spent 9 months of his life removing barnacles one by one. She thought about the 12,000 people she'd saved 3 years ago, the ones who'd gotten to live because she'd been willing to sacrifice herself. She thought about her own daughter, Lily, who planned for the future despite doctors telling her she might not have one. If a 9-year-old human girl could have that much courage, surely a dragon could manage one flight. Seraphix spread her wings. They extended to their full span, nearly a kilometer across. The station star caught her albino scales, and suddenly she wasn't just reflecting light. She was transforming it. The opalescent patterns on her scales refracted the starlight into cascading rainbows that painted the entire hangar in dancing colors. Gasps echoed across the observation decks. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. Other dragons had beautiful scales. But Seraphix's albino coloring did something unique. She didn't just reflect light like a mirror. She broke it apart, scattered it, turned single beams into thousands of shimmering colors. She looked like a living aurora, like the northern lights of Earth given form and consciousness. She launched herself forward, wings beating with all the strength she'd rebuilt over the past weeks. For a terrifying moment, she felt herself dropping, gravity pulling her down. Her muscles screamed. Her wings felt too weak. She was going to fail. But then something clicked. Muscle memory buried deep in her biology kicked in. Her wings found their rhythm. The mechanics of flight that she'd known since she was a hatchling came flooding back. She wasn't falling. She was rising. She was flying. Seraphix soared through the void around Station Meridian, her movements gaining confidence with every passing second. She rolled and dove and climbed, testing her limits, rediscovering the pure joy of movement. She wasn't just flying. She was dancing. The stars blurred past her and she laughed, a sound of such pure happiness that it transmitted across every communication channel on the station. On the observation decks, the crowd erupted in cheers. Even the skeptics couldn't deny what they were seeing. The afflicted dragon wasn't just recovered. She was magnificent. Tyler watched with tears streaming down his face. 9 months. 9 months of work, of refusing to quit, of believing when everyone else had given up. And now look at her. She was beautiful. She was free. Victoria stood beside him, crying too. "You did this," she said. "You saved her." "We did this," Tyler corrected. "You helped when it mattered most." After an hour of flying, Seraphix returned to the hangar. She landed with perfect grace, barely making a sound despite her massive size. Tyler ran up to her and she lowered her head so they were at eye level. "So," Tyler said, grinning through his tears. "How was it?" "Perfect," Seraphix whispered. "Absolutely perfect." Then she made him an offer that shocked everyone listening. In dragon culture, there was a bond between those who saved each other's lives. A partnership deeper than friendship, stronger than family. "Tyler Reed, would you fly with me? Be my partner among the stars? Together we could help others that everyone's given up on." Tyler didn't hesitate. "Lady, I thought you'd never ask." Victoria stepped forward. "I want to help too. I want to make up for the time I wasted. There are others out there suffering alone, thinking nobody cares. Let me prove them wrong." And so they formed an unlikely team. A human salvage worker with stubborn determination. An albino dragon who'd learned hope again. And a ruby-scaled dragon seeking redemption. Together, they left Station Meridian with a new mission. Word spread quickly across the galaxy about their work. The human who never quit. The dragon who refused to die. The sister who learned what family really meant. Their story became legend, whispered in medical facilities and veterans' halls, in colonies on the frontier and established worlds alike. The tale always ended the same way: when everyone else gave up, the human never did. That's why you never count humanity out. They're too stubborn to know when something's impossible, and too caring to abandon those who need them. That's their real power. Not strength or speed, but the absolute refusal to let the people they love suffer alone. Tyler looked back at Station Meridian one last time as they jumped to hyperspace, heading toward their first rescue mission. Beside him, Seraphix's scales shimmered with reflected starlight. Ahead of them, the galaxy stretched out infinitely, full of people who needed someone to believe in them. "You ready?" Seraphix asked. Tyler smiled. "Always. Let's go find someone who needs us." They vanished into hyperspace, 3 souls bound by the most human of traits: stubborn, unreasonable, beautiful hope. And somewhere in the universe, someone who'd given up on ever being helped suddenly had a reason to hold on just a little bit longer. Because help was coming. It always was, as long as humans were involved.